Mark Ryan.
Blunt, open, honest sports talk.
You do it for a feeling of satisfaction that you get right in here.
That's what it means.
Is Upstate.
What is good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Can I get an amen? Truly do appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. Here's how you can take part. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. And you can hit us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Coming up on the show today, what is a bigger red flag? In terms of who can win the NBA championship, I'm shocked I'm not hearing this team's name. DJ with some barbs at Clemson. Are they justified or are they offsides? We've got an interview with you with John Heyman, nationally known baseball scribe. I'm going to give you my draft pet peeves, which are coming up here on the show today at 4 p.m. We've got Chris Phillips on a Gamecocks spanking of the Gators. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got a media mock draft. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Folks, want to share this with you. We've got live shows this week in person, live and in living color. Remember that show? In Living Color. We're at Ingalls, Spartanburg, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway on Wednesday for a 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. show. We are at Twin Peaks on Woodruff Road in Greenville, 3 to 7 p.m. on Thursday for an NFL draft show. And we are very, very excited about all of the above. Folks, let me tell you, always appreciate the chance to meet you guys in person. Love meeting you in person. We have a great time when we're out at the live shows, and our draft party on Thursday at Twin Peaks is going to be popping. If you do not have plans for the NFL draft, why don't you come out and do the draft with us? We'll be hanging out a little bit after the show, watching the draft with you guys. And that, to me, like, I want to do more of this kind of stuff with you. You know, like, when you come out to the live shows, it's fantastic. However, I don't often get to spend a lot of time with you during the show because the commercial breaks are 3 or 4 minutes. Here's a chance where we really have a draft party. The Rob Brown Show is going to be out there 9 a.m. to noon. Offsides, both Diesel and I will be out there from 3 to 7 p.m., and then we'll hang out for a little bit thereafter with you. Have an adult beverage or two, watch the draft, tell you best and worst picks. It's going to be fun. Twin Peaks in Greenville, Woodruff Road, this coming Thursday. Folks, I will open with this. Many of you have followed the story the last few weeks as I've kind of opened the door and let you into my life, and do want to let you know that my wife's dad, Jim, passed away yesterday morning. All I can tell you is it has been one of the most challenging, difficult things that I've ever been through in my life. I shared this news yesterday. There was a tremendous amount of support that was shared on social media, which I really, really, really appreciate that. And it's tough, and nothing anybody says can prepare you for going through that. I have a few thoughts on that. And then, you know, if it's okay with you guys, I want you guys to be my distraction today. I want you guys to be my distraction from the sadness and everything that is going on in the family, because I don't want to be down 24 hours a day for weeks on end. I don't think Jim would want me to be down 24 hours a day for weeks on end. Johnny Carrots on Twitter sent one of my favorite messages yesterday about this. He said, thinking of your family today, the battle is over. The victory is won. So he's 61, and he passed away, had a rare form of cancer that we think he may have gotten from chemical exposure in the military. Long story short, and I haven't shared this part before, it's a kind of cancer that forms like a cyst in your body. Your body walls it off. And a lot of times when they can remove the cyst, the patient is cancer-free. In this particular case, the VA did the surgery and they nicked the cyst when they were operating. And the contents of the cyst leaked into his body, and he was worse ever since. Never recovered since that time. The chemo kind of trashed his immune system, and it got to the point where a week ago Friday, so 10 days ago, we were with him in the hospital, and he said, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want any more blood transfusions. I just want to go home. That's all I want. I'm not going back to the hospital. No matter what, I'm not going back to the hospital. And I said to my wife, I'm like, that doesn't work. And she goes, well, he's telling you what he's doing. He wasn't going to get any more treatment. And so over the course of last week, I was over there 4 or 5 times over the course of the last week. And I had a couple of days off scheduled. Apologies. We had fill-in hosts scheduled for Friday and Monday, and apologies to both, because the way that it was constructed with my boss was I needed to be there the day that he passed. I was there when when the show was over. Every day I would go over there most of the days last week, spend some time. And I'm here today because he passed yesterday. And I got to spend yesterday with the family. And like my 4 grandparents, 2 of them died very late in life in their 80s from a traumatic health event. The other 2, when they passed away in their late 80s and 90s, they had, like dementia. So they were gone in terms of their cognitive ability long before their physical ability left them. And this was different for me because there was just a lot of suffering, and it was a younger guy, and he was 61, and just kind of seeing what he was going through. I got it. Like, I understood. Still, when he's in bed and we kept asking him, is this what you want? Do you want us to bring you to the hospital? And he kept saying, this is what I want. He kept saying that over and over and over again. It's so hard because that blood is what he needed. You knew that iron is what he needed. And like his wish was not to do that anymore. And so that to me was very, very hard, because whenever there's something wrong with anybody, you and I and everybody else are trained, right? Okay, he needs blood, let's get him blood. He needs iron, let's get him iron. And it's hard not to do that when you know that, somebody is struggling, and that is most definitely what they need. But we were all with him at 3 a.m. yesterday morning. I got off the air with a national show with CBS at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. Was over at their house in northern Greer, rural Greer, at about 11 o'clock on Saturday night, and just stayed there with them from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. Tried to get a little shut-eye. At 4:46 a.m., we got a knock on the door that he had taken his last breath and that he had passed. And I'll tell you, because he was there, and I spent some time with him yesterday after he had passed. And I'll bring you guys into this, and then we'll move on and we'll get to sports, because it's been really heavy on my mind the last 24 hours. I'll bring you guys into this sensation that I had there. I am not somebody who's had an easy path in terms of spirituality or religion. Like, I know what I want to believe. I want to believe fully and completely, but I've had reservations and I've had doubts. And I don't know how anyone could say with 100% certainty that they know what happens. I don't know how an atheist can tell you they're 100% sure that nothing happens. I don't know how a Christian can tell you with 100% certainty that, good people go to heaven if you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. I've always classified myself as a Christian. because I go to church and I pray, but I got to be honest with you. Like, I don't know for sure if there's something there. But I can tell you that I was overcome by a certain feeling Saturday nights when he was passing into yesterday, when I was spending time with him deceased bedside, right? And what really came over me was this tremendous feeling that he had left his body. That the soul, the person, the human, the heart that had left his body, and that what was remaining was a shell, and that was a pretty cool feeling. I never had that feeling before. I never experienced that before in my life. So it very much felt to me like, man, I get it. I can feel souls rising. I get what happened to Jesus. It didn't feel like he was gone and there was nothing there. It felt like the shell of him was there, but the spirit had gone somewhere else. And that is the feeling that I had experiencing that. Anyway, guys, it's tough and it's emotional, and there's been a ton of tears. And Jim was just a wonderful, wonderful man. I'll tell you this, last March, we took a little trip to Knoxville, Tennessee together. Like, we had a cabin, and his son came down from Ohio, and his son's wife. They have 3 grandkids with them. Angela and I were there as well. And we had Angela and I stayed in a room that was a loft in the cabin. And it was a loft room, and there were 2 beds in the room. And as I'm walking into the room, Jim looks at me and he says, "I better see both of those beds unmade in the morning." And I laughed and he laughed. And it's like a testament to his sense of humor. I told you I was over there a couple weeks ago, and I've been dealing with a sinus infection. You've been hearing me cough a lot on the radio. And sorry about that, by the way. But I went over there and I asked Angela's mom for a leave. And he goes, "You don't got to leave. You just got over here." And that was the kind of sense of humor that he had. Diesel, I want to thank you for being as supportive as you have been. You're just kind of, man, at the end of this, you're tired. You're raw.
Yeah.
It feels like you can tear up on like a moment's notice. It's very, very difficult, but I did experience some really, really powerful feelings over the last 24, 48 hours that have stayed with me.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat, I think, as you, as all of my grandparents passed away. 3 of them passed away while I was really young. 1 passed away before I was even born, so I never got a chance to meet him. But they all passed away when I was young, so I really haven't dealt with death of a close relative as an adult. Like, I don't know what that is like. So yeah, it's a totally different experience dealing with it as a cognitive adult versus being a child. I will share that when my grandfather passed away, this is the one who played football at Clemson, who was on the 1941 Cotton Bowl team with Banks McFadden. He and my grandmother had 5 kids. And when he passed away and we were at the funeral, his oldest son, my uncle, got up and did a speech, and he is not a spiritual or religious person at all. He said, "Last night, my father came to me in a dream and said, everything is okay. Said, everything is fine. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Everything is good." And he goes, I've never experienced anything like that before. And he goes, it gave me an extreme sense of calm. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to get that. So, yeah, it's tough, and I feel for you, and I feel for Angela and Jackson and her brother and her mom. So, of course, as all of the messages that are coming in here on the YouTube channel already from our good friends Trey Davis, from John Edward Kruger, of course, we're all with the family.
Yeah, I want to encourage you guys to get in on the text line as well. It's 71307. Appreciate the kind words. Diesel, I'll tell you a couple things. Like on Friday night when I was went over there after our show Friday, I said to my folks, I said, if you want to have a last word to Jim, this is the time to do it. He is now in bed, and he doesn't expect to leave bed however long that it is. And so I was able to pass on a message from my mom and dad to him. Then Saturday, Diesel, I was getting ready for the CBS show. And by the time I got over there Saturday night, he was no longer with it. He was essentially sleeping the whole time. He would open his eyes and like stretch his arms, but he wasn't responding to you anymore. And during the day, like at 1 or 2 p.m., he said to Angela, he's like, I'd like to share a couple things with you. And he said to Angela, communication is key. Always remember that in your marriage. Communication is key. And then he said, have a great sex life. He said that to Angela on Saturday, right? And I said, here to that, sir. Here to that. Cheers to that. And a couple hours after that, everyone was in the room. He opened his eyes and he said, wow, everybody's here. And he said that, and he went back to bed, and that was the last time 3:00 Saturday that he presented really a clear thought that anyone could understand. But guys, we love him and we'll miss him, and I appreciate all of your support tremendously during this very difficult time. Yeah, guys, it's interesting. It's interesting now that we are on YouTube. We're getting a lot of messages on YouTube. The text line is always great. Want to always, in order of our priority, I'll get to the text line always first. We appreciate the Facebook comments, the tweets, the YouTube messages as well. Invite you guys to get in on the text line as well at 71307, starting your text with the word fan, and away you go. John Edward Kruger says, how about them Gamecocks? John, I'd love to say I saw even a single pitch of it, but I didn't. Let's see here. I don't think it's a good idea to bring my 5-year-old to the draft party. John Edward Kruger says, so sorry, Mark. Trey Davis says, sorry for your loss, Mark. Take your time. Trey says, I lost my dad when I was 8. Things won't be normal, but it will be a new normal. Do something that will honor his memory. Occasionally go to places that he liked to go. Brandon Reese on YouTube says, prayers for you and your family, Mark. Guys, thank you so much for that. It means the world. On the text line, praying for you and your family, Mark. It's rough losing a close one. I lost my mom in my mid-30s, and she was only 60. Yeah, and it's like, that's the hard part, Diesel, because I lost my grandparents. How old were you when you lost them, Diesel? Like, I lost my 4 between when I was the ages of 24 and 34. So, like, Jackson is 5, and there's so many great vacations and stuff that we're supposed to be able to be had with him. Jim was supposed to be able to see his grandchildren grow up a bit, and it just feels like you're robbed of that. It feels harsh.
Yeah, my grandmother on my mom's side and my grandfather on my dad's side, I think both passed away when I was in high school, and my last remaining grandmother was when I was in college. Yeah.
Texter says, Mark, we are here for you always, brother. Thank you so very much for the kind words. Hurricane Jeff says, praise Heavenly Father. We thank you and glorify your name. We thank you for the time that we had with Jim, and we thank you for sending your son to die for our sins in Jesus' name. Amen. That's beautiful. So, yeah, Jeff, and I bring you into kind of my spiritual journey. What I felt Saturday night into Sunday morning was very, very powerful. It was such a strong feeling that Jim is still here, but he wasn't in his body anymore. That the body was a shell. It was a suitcase, and the suitcase had been opened and Jim had left. It certainly wasn't a feeling that he was gone. It was a feeling that he was just no longer inside the suitcase any longer. All right, guys. Now, God, I just feel kind of emotionally raw, vulnerable, a little choked up, but let's be a distraction. Let's have you guys be a distraction from me over the next 4 hours. So when we come back, what is a bigger red flag between these two quarterbacks? We'll tackle that. We'll get your answers and so much more next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Truly appreciate you guys making us part of your afternoon. So, there's some really fascinating debates going on right now in terms of the draft. The Carolina Panthers, for all intents and purposes, are locked into Bryce Young, which is good news. The intel that I had early in the process, very early in the process, is that they were locked in on CJ Stroud. And there was a period of time where they were even more locked into Anthony Richardson than they were Bryce Young. And as this time has gone on, they're trending toward the right decision. But is the right decision a game changer? Where is Bryce Young between average, good to great?
Well, they talk about Bryce Young's, cognition and his cognitive ability, and they say he's off the charts. And the only knock on Bryce Young is his size. Well, my biggest concern about his size is that we've now had more than a decade of small quarterbacks making a name for themselves in the NFL, as compared to the prototypical stand-in-the-pocket, big-bodied quarterbacks of the 90s and the early 2000s. Well, that also means that linebackers have had time to get faster, linemen have had time to get faster, and now that escapability it's still a great thing, but you have linebackers that can run you down. You have linemen that are fast enough to run you down in certain situations, and if you don't have a big enough body to be able to absorb that kind of contact, that makes you a liability long-term. You might have 1, 2, 3 great seasons because you just have this freak athletic ability, but eventually all of those injuries are going to pile up and you don't stay in the league for very long as a quarterback. We want stars at quarterback to have 15-year careers. That's what we expect of them, right? And if they don't, people say, oh, the guy was kind of a bust. Well, maybe he just got hurt a lot and it took him out of the league. His body couldn't hold up. He regressed towards the average of 3 to 4 years is the average career in the NFL. Quarterbacks are regressing towards that average because they're just not big enough to absorb that kind of contact, and they're getting outside of the pocket. So they're opening themselves up to more of that contact.
If I said to you guys, what you have is a 5'10" quarterback with average arm strength, you would probably say, that's who Carolina's taking number one. Now, he's got a lot of really, really good traits, and some of those we're going to get to in a moment. He's 5'10" with average arm strength. The height of every Super Bowl winning quarterback since 2012. Patrick Mahomes was 6'2". Matt Stafford 6'3". Tom Brady 6'4". Mahomes again 6'2". Tom Brady 6'4". Nick Foles 6'6". Peyton Manning 6'5". Tom Brady 6'4". Joe Flacco 6'6". Russell Wilson 5'11". What did Russell Wilson have? The Legion of Doom defense.
Legion of Boom.
Legion of Boom defense. You're right. Legion of Boom defense. And what he had, amazingly, Bryce Young has not had a lot of passes batted at the line. He's had fewer passes batted at the line than Justin Herbert, who's much bigger. But the facts are what they are. So, look, you're asking me, Mark, when you were single, Mark Ryan, what were your red flags? Red flags were,
not having a great butt.
Having a sense of self-awareness, dressing appropriately for the occasion. Are you engaging, right? Do you have a kind heart? Those are questions that you'd ask, right? To me, a track record of cheating, abuse, or drugs, those were all red flags that I wouldn't pass go. I don't collect $200. Those were what they were for me. In the NFL circles, you've got height as the red flag for Bryce Young. And now I'm going to tell you definitively why CJ Stroud is falling faster than Megan Fox did for Machine Gun Kelly. All right? Going to tell you conclusively how and why that is the case. The S2 is the brand new cognitive test that the NFL is giving. They have replaced the Wonderlic with the S2 cognitive test. And this measures processing speed. Diesel, what's the name of a computer processor that's fast? And what's the name of a computer processor
Intel.
that's slow? So Intel is fast.
Yeah.
What's one that's slow?
Oh, God. If they were slow, then we wouldn't know about them, would we?
Ones
not
you've
on the
had
market.
in the past, right?
Yeah.
So the S2 cognitive test apparently processes speed, like processing speed, how quickly a quarterback processes a field, and he has to react and press buttons and do things. It's almost like a video game screen, what they're doing, and they're scored on a percentile, right? So if you score in the 80th percentile, it means that your score is better than 80% of people who has taken the test. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is kind of unbelievable. You look at these scores. Bryce Young, 98th percentile. Will Levis, 93rd percentile. The goal is 80, okay? Anthony Richardson, 79th percentile. Kind of right there, right? Hendon Hooker, Tennessee, 46th percentile.
Ooh.
CJ Stroud, 18th percentile. 18th percentile. Folks, this is from an NFL executive, and this is part of Go Long, the blog that Bob McGunn, a former NFL scout, is writing. We had on their founder, Tyler Dunn, on the CBS show on Saturday, and I asked him about this. Here's what and Bob McGinn talks to a bunch of different NFL scouts and executives here. The executive said Stroud scored an 18. That's like red alert. You can't take a guy like that. That is why I have Stroud as a bust. That in conjunction with the fact, name one Ohio State quarterback that's ever done it in the league. That's what an NFL executive said, ladies and gentlemen. And then you start going through the Ohio State quarterbacks, and I don't really believe in that, guys. Like, hey, what's an Alabama quarterback ever done? Or Florida quarterback? Or remember, we used to get that about Duke basketball, and then Jason Tatum's one of the best players in the league. I don't believe in doing that because regimes change, coaches change. It's not the same system for 50 years, you know? But Justin Fields, how's he going to be in the NFL? Mike Tomczak might be the second best. Dwayne Haskins was a bust. Art Schlichter in 1982, a bust. So those are the problems, right? Those are the problems. And another executive said, if you get a high score as a quarterback, it's not a surefire thing that you're going to be a great player. But if you get a low score, it's been 100%. None of the quarterbacks that have gotten a low score have become a good player. I don't understand why we're allowed to know what the athletic measurements are, and like it's considered taboo to know what the cognitive tests are.
I think we're going to make fun of players for not doing well on the cognitive portions of their tests. I mean, they were elite athletes in college. Like there are many different kinds of intelligence. There are people who are really great at whatever task it is, but they don't test well when they're in high school testing situations. That happens. So, I mean, everybody's got their own skill set.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the question is for you, which is a bigger red flag, right? Which is a bigger red flag? One AFC evaluator says the following of this year's quarterback class. Remember, Diesel, we had Russell Brown on, NFL draft analyst, and we said if Trevor Lawrence was a 10 as a prospect, what's the best of these guys? He said 6.5. An AFC evaluator. This quarterback class is the most overhyped and understandably so group that I can recall. Every one of them is flawed, and some with major flaws. So I think they all get overdrafted, and unfortunately, they all underperform. Even if they become starters, they're bottom half of the league starters. God, what are you like?
You know, my only guess what the Carolina Panthers are doing is they feel like they have to take a quarterback at this point because they didn't get who they wanted to in trades, but they still don't have everything they need to be a complete football team next year. So in all likelihood, the Carolina Panthers are going to be drafting relatively high again next year in what is supposed to be a very deep quarterback draft. So could we see Carolina go quarterback 2 years in a row? I mean, again, what else shows you that they don't know what they're doing than going QB 2 years in a row with potentially top 10 draft picks 2 years in a row? But we very well may find ourselves in that situation. And the Carolina Panthers may say, well, all right, we'll keep both of them on the roster till they're done with their rookie deals. And then we can make a decision and move on from the one that's not performing.
A texter says they should draft C.J. Stroud, period. The NFL is a quarterback league, and they definitely need one. At 4 o'clock, because in this segment it seems like I'm making the case against C.J. Stroud, at 4 o'clock I'm going to make the case for C.J. Stroud, and then we'll come together on this. A lot of texts coming in. We do appreciate that, but I want to do something here. I want to read every single, and Bob McGinn, he writes in the column that recently, in order to have the context that he does, he had to make it anonymous. Otherwise, people were no longer willing to share anything with him. So here's what he says. I'm going to share with you the different tidbits on this draft class, because this, to me, was the most insightful, fascinating piece that I've read since we were last on the air. I've read this now multiple times. Who's going to be the best quarterback in this year's draft class? 16 different analysts, Bob McGinn, had vote on this. Young was first with 72 points. Stroud had 56 points. Levis was third with 46. Richardson was fourth with 40. And Hendon Hooker had 20 points. And then they were asked, let's see here. What would it be? How would you evaluate these guys in terms of bust potential? Right? Richardson and Levis were 1 and 2. Okay, in terms of who is most likely to be a bust. Anthony Richardson was 1. Will Levis was 2. And Stroud was 3rd and Young was 4th. So Richardson had the most votes for being a bust. Now let me read you what 3, 4, 5 different scouts and evaluators said. All right. I shared with you the one guy who said bottom half of the league starters. Here's number 2, an AFC evaluator. I would say this quarterback class is a bit above average. There's not a bona fide guy. There's no Andrew Luck. Comparing it to Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, that class was way better coming out. You can poke holes in all these guys. An AFC evaluator. Teams have gone to better athletes at quarterback, but they're shorter. An NFC evaluator. None of these guys are Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence. An AFC evaluator. History tells us probably 4 of the top 5 guys are going to be busts. It's crazy. You know, that's a pressure-packed situation for Carolina. You've got to find the non-bust out of 5 when 4 are likely to be busts.
We're also living in a hype world. I mean, these guys are hyped coming out of high school. You said it yourself. We're seeing more 4- and 5-star athletes than ever because these magazines and these websites are feeling the pressure to hype these guys more and more to get more clicks and views on their websites. So then they have all this hype coming out of high school. They got all this hype coming out of college. They're being hyped up before the NFL draft. Way too much time to hype these guys up and convince yourself, for example, that Anthony Richardson is going to be something that he was not in college. What do you expect? You hype these guys so much to the point that they almost can't help but bust because you put so much expectations on them.
Now you guys know why I was so pissed the day it was announced that Carolina made the trade. 2 firsts, 2 seconds.
They didn't have
DJ
to.
Moore in a class that didn't have an Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence. You're hearing from the scouts themselves. I can poke holes in all these guys and other scouts. These guys are going to be bottom half of the league starters. God.
But you don't waste a number 1 pick on somebody you hope you're going to get lucky on.
Yeah, no, you don't. All right, folks. We're going to make the case for C.J. Stroud coming up at 4 o'clock. But up next, had a chance to speak to the venerable John Heyman, Odyssey baseball insider, so plugged into the game. We talked about automated balls and strikes and so much more. You'll hear that next here on Offsides.
certainly as I watch college games and Little League and other games, I really appreciate.
Hello,
Major League
guys,
umpires.
on the stream.
They usually back
On the
around
air right
97%
now, you are
on
hearing
the call.
a pre-recorded
Both
interview that
strikes.
Mark did
But,
with John
I
Heyman,
wanna be perfect.
talking Major League
I'm
Baseball,
certainly glad that we have
that he
the,
recorded
replay
on
now.
Saturday on his
That he's
CBS
correct.
national
It's a
show.
bigger deal.
So we didn't want to leave you guys on the stream on
I'm
a
not that much in
20
favor, but I do
minutes,
believe that there's a good
20 minute
chance that
silent
we'll-
block. So would love
How
to
about
just
that?
chat
Be
with
my
you guys
goddamn
here over the
question.
next 15
It could
minutes or
happen.
so.
For
Apologies.
years, I would
The
not
reason
have
why
a
you
level
always
job.
see me kind of going
John
left and right,
Heyman,
like I'm
Odyssey
playing defense with my
Baseball
octopus
Insider,
arms,
a
is
couple
because
of
I'm
weeks
editing
ago,
audio on this
talking to
computer over
me
here, and then I'm
about
editing stuff on
automated
this
balls
computer
and
over
strikes
here,
potentially
and then I'm
coming to
pulling
bigs
audio from up
in the
here,
next
and then
2
I'm
or
watching
3
you
years.
guys
We
over
are
here.
now
So
joined by the
that's why
aforementioned Odyssey NLD
that's why I'm
Insider,
all over the
John
place
Heyman,
during
host of the
these
Odyssey
web
original
streams.
podcast,
But
Big Time Baseball,
yeah, we wanted
with
to
Tony Gwynn Jr.,
just kind of
covering
get on here and
all
talk to you
things
guys for the
Major
next
League
15 minutes
Baseball.
or so.
Truly do
What I'm
appreciate
going to
catching
do
up with you,
is
John, and that
I'm
particular
going
take.
to actually pull the audio from the interview out of what you guys are hearing on the stream. If you want to listen to this interview in its entirety, then you can check that out on the podcast when that is posted a little bit later on this afternoon. But hey, we can't thank you guys enough for really, really embracing this YouTube channel. Why is Mark so fuzzy? I'm not entirely sure.
I look better this way. The more clear you get, the worse the appearance.
Somebody's like, did Diesel blur Mark's camera? No, he just looks that way.
Yeah.
He had a long weekend.
Yeah.
But man, this YouTube channel is growing so stinking fast. We put up 35 new subscribers just over the weekend from a video that we posted, I want to say on Wednesday of last week. And it's Gamecock fans. It's Gamecock fans jumping in and subscribing to the channel because they're loving the content that we posted about South Carolina's number 5 overall recruiting class. There you go. Yeah, I think you got a little bit less blurry there.
I went from
But-
like 3 beers in to
Yeah.
back to sober again, just like that.
So those of you who are watching this, and there's a couple of you, drop a comment and just let us know who's watching now at the moment. I'm guessing Spur Daddy, Trey, maybe John Kruger are still in this room. We had Chris Marler in here, Mongo, for a couple of minutes, but we can't, again, we can't say enough about how big that is. And hey, the best thing that you Gamecock fans can do, and it's funny how the Gamecock fans have really taken over this YouTube stream. The best thing y'all can do is anytime, the common narrative comes up that Mark is a Clemson homer, all you got to do, like, we can say it till we're blue in the face. No, that's not the case. No, that's not the case. We call it both ways on both sides. But like, the best thing you can do is jump in there as Gamecock fans and say, hey, I listen to the show every single day, and he is even on both sides. One of the things about YouTube is you are behooved to really narrow down your focus of content, like really, really narrow it down. Like, be a Gamecock YouTube channel, be a Clemson YouTube channel, be a whatever, very, very specific topics. And what we do here on the show obviously doesn't lend itself very well because we cover a wide range of topics, heavily on the Clemson South Carolina rivalry, but we don't lean to one side or the other. So that's why somebody will follow us, subscribe to us, listen to our podcast, whatever, and hear something positive South Carolina, and they'll subscribe for that reason. And then we come out and we say something negative about South Carolina, who did something potentially to deserve it. And then they say, well, who do you think you are? Why are you bashing on South Carolina? Why are you talking good about Clemson? They don't understand. They don't realize that what we do is we cover all these topics, and we cover positives and negatives for both sides of the rivalry. So what's up, Mongo? Mongo's watching right now. We could really use you guys pounding the pavement for us and letting people know, excuse me, while I bump the mic, letting people know from a Gamecock insider perspective, as a lot of you guys who are following us, watching us right now are, let them know that we are positive about the Gamecocks too, and that we rip Clemson 2. Like you don't like the specific storyline that we're talking about right now, wait 10 minutes and the storyline changes and we go somewhere else, or we say something to crap on you on your rival. So that would really, really help us out.
Yeah, guys, we love you. We appreciate you, man. And I can't thank you enough. I never know which to
look at the camera.
There you go. Hey, how's it going? There you are. There you are.
Yeah, you got to watch the camera, but sort of monitor out of the side of your eye.
Yeah. What's on y'all's front burner right now? You know, like there's a surprising. I can't remember in April where it felt like there was more really interesting stuff going on. You know, you got the local NFL team that has the number 1 pick, but maybe not a player that's worthy of going number 1 in the draft, right? You got the Gamecocks absolutely pantsing my Gators in a 3-game set over the weekend. NBA playoffs in full swing. We've got some of that coming up on the show today as well. You got local teams in the playoffs. Swamp Rabbits lost yesterday to the Jacksonville Icemen, but there are, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more potential games in that best-of-7 series. The good guys, Swamp Rabbits, lost yesterday 2-1 in overtime, but that is it. That is it in the early going. So, a lot going on, man. A lot going on. Going to have a lively show for you guys here today, and thank you for your patience with us as we work out the kinks. What do you think? Isn't the studio looking nice?
Looking good.
Look at our thanks to the Triumph, the Liberty, for decorating the digs behind here, man. I'll get my ugly mug out of the way so you can see another ugly mug. Offsides with Mark Ryan and Diesel on the TV. We're looking good in here, man. 25 Garlington Road. Never looked better. Feeling good. We're wrapping up an interview right now. I had a chance to speak to John Heyman, MLB insider, on the national CBS show on Saturday. And so excited. We're playing that interview now for you. And we'll be coming back to the live show at 4 p.m. So about 8 minutes from right now. Trey Davis said, I heard someone call in on Saturday and give Mark the business about the sweep. Mark played it down, LOL. Yeah, Diesel, check this out. I'm on CBS Sports Radio.
Yeah.
And I get a call from Columbia.
Love it.
And the guy goes, how about that sweep, Mark Ryan? Because the CBS has an affiliate in Columbia. And I'm like, you're really going to divert the topic on a national radio show? You're really going to do that?
Of course they are.
Yeah. So that was cool, but it's fine. It's fine. You know, it was a little smack. That was funny, wasn't it, Trey? That was funny. That was funny stuff. I'm like going on about the draft. Hey, Mark, how about your Gators? Like, no one else listening across America knows what that means. Mark, how about your Gators? What does that mean? But it shows you, Diesel. You know what it said to me? You know, we always share that our number 1 market for downloads is Columbia.
Every time.
And I was getting calls from Columbia from people who, it's like, these people know us there, man.
I think that the answer is we need to get on to a radio station in Columbia. No matter how big, no matter how small, we need a presence in Columbia so that people can hear the show every single day. Because most of the time, what people in Columbia are getting, they're getting Chris Phillips retweeting it. They're getting angry Gamecock fans, angry birds retweeting this content. And that's all they see. They all only know Mark Ryan bashes South Carolina. But that's not the case. Like I just said earlier, that's not the case. We're not constantly bashing South Carolina. So we need to get on a radio station down there. That would be huge for us.
Man.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, it really, really would. We will be back, guys, in just a few minutes here. We're wrapping up the interview with
There's about 7 minutes of this interview left. Trey Davis, it was cool to hear how you started. I want to know if any of you guys found the radio station that I was on in Chattanooga and listened to that station. I know it was on at the exact same time as this. People are like, how do you think you did? Like, I don't know. It's on the same time as I'm on here. I did have a couple of people from Chattanooga follow me on social media and start listening to my local show here in Greenville. So that was really awesome of them. But again, we can't thank you enough for how fast you've helped this thing take off, for watching all of our content. It's massive. We were like, oh, cool. We're going to get 50 to 100 views for a while until this thing starts to take off. But no, we got a video approaching 3,000 views, which is awesome. We love to see those kind of numbers getting put up, and you South Carolina fans. And it's the South Carolina fans searching and finding this stuff on YouTube, and those of you who are sharing it out, we appreciate that as well. So, all right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to let you guys talk amongst yourselves here for the next 6 minutes of this interview. And that's one of the cool things, by the way, about the YouTube comment section is on Twitter, it's always a one-way conversation. They're talking to us. But on YouTube, in the comment section, we got Steven, we got Trey, we got Mongo, we got John Edward Kruger going after each other in the comments section. And this is great. This is great. We love you guys going after each other. It creates a whole new level of interactivity, not just with us, but with each other. So what was that SNL sketch? It was a Mike Myers sketch where he said, talk amongst yourselves. He was like an old Jewish lady or something.
Yeah.
So you guys just talk amongst yourselves for the next 6 minutes, and you can reminisce about the Gamecocks sweeping the Florida Gators over the weekend if you want. By all means, talk about that. Make Mark feel bad about himself. And we will be back with you on the show in about 7 minutes. So catch you in a few.
What is good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Guys, I owe some of you an apology. I realized on the CBS show this weekend, I didn't open the local text line. Had so much going on during that show. And a number of you were texting into the CBS show, and I didn't get to your tweets live and on the air. My promise to you is that's not going to happen again, okay? So the next time I'm on CBS Sports Radio, I will have the local text line open, and if you text to us during that show, I will get to your texts on the national show. So everyone across the country will hear your texts if you text during the CBS show. I just scrolled down on the text line and I was like, oh, snap. I didn't open our local text line on Saturday. And there were all of these texts from our local listeners texting the show. And I'm so sorry. We got 2 calls on the national show from Columbia. CBS Sports Radio is on in Columbia. People wanted to run smack about the Gamecocks sweeping the Gators. And then we got another call from Greenville, South Carolina. And it was a nice man saying that I had converted him and he'd never listen to any other local sports radio again. So all that, man, was really, really, really appreciated, guys. And a lot of people chiming in on the text line today about the draft conundrum. What is a bigger red flag? Is it Bryce Young's height or lack thereof? He's 5'10", or is it CJ Stroud scoring in the 18th percentile? Meaning that 82% of people who took the S2 cognitive test did better than CJ Stroud. Where did Bryce Young fare? 98th percentile. Bryce Young fared better than 98 out of 100 people who took the cognitive test.
Don't you? It's one of the situations like, man, don't you wish you could put that guy's brain in that guy's body?
Yeah, completely. If we had that, Diesel, then it would be worth trading up to number 1, right? So Texter says, let's see here, Mark, I feel for you. I lost my wife in 2013, remarried shortly after, and then lost a child as well. Oh, I know what you are going through, truthfully. Hurricane Jeff, I am so sorry, brother. So sorry. Text, it's just, it's amazing how you just don't have the words. All you can say is say you're sorry and give hugs. That's really it. And that's how I feel right now. You just feel kind of numb, feel kind of raw. If you're just joining us wondering what happened, my father-in-law passed away over the weekend and made a decision yesterday afternoon that it'd be good for me, if it was okay with the family, to get back to work and to allow the show to be a good distraction for me from the sadness going on. Texter says the Carolina Panthers should select CJ Stroud, period. The NFL is a QB league, and they definitely need one. Well, Texter, you're ignoring the results. There's never been a quarterback who scored poorly on the S2 cognitive test that was good in the NFL. There never has been one. Texter says, told you CJ Stroud will turn out to be the typical Ohio State quarterback. A bust. Hope the Panthers don't make a mistake and take Stroud. That's what Spur Daddy said. Carolina should have held steady at number 9 and picked another wide receiver or offensive lineman, traded up next year to number 1 with Caleb Williams or Drake May. Both of those guys are better quarterbacks than any of these guys in 2023.
It might have been a better plan to run PJ Walker out there for the year and just give him the entire season as QB1. Who knows? Maybe you have a Geno Smith situation where a guy that everybody thought was going to be ho-hum showed you something last year in his limited time to get out there and play, made some big plays for Carolina before he ended up getting hurt. I would have loved them giving PJ Walker another season, but if and only if you know that you are going to tank this year for an elite quarterback in next year's draft.
Texter says, Mark remembers the Heisman Trophy winning Ohio State quarterback that played against his Gators. That was Troy Smith for the Natty in 2006. The Suckeyes lost 35-10. I think it was 41-14. The Gators beat them to a team they were around a double-digit favorite over. Yeah, remember that? 2006 year, Ohio State, Michigan. People were saying, oh, it should be a rematch. Florida barely beat Vanderbilt. Ohio State didn't even belong on the field with Florida. That was the beginning of the SEC's reign of dominance at the college for the national championship. Texter says, check out Joey Fisher, offensive line from Shepherd University. I love the small college prospects. More on that in a minute, Texter. I hate Ohio State, but could this be a tactic used to allow Stroud to fall to a team who has a quarterback need? No, Texter, because the NFL teams all have the results. For some reason, probably because it's more sensitive to share like a cognitive test result, like a test of mental capacity. It's more sensitive to share that than it is your 40 time. I don't know, man. My feeling is if the NFL teams have the information, then we should have the information as well.
I think people look at it like if you have an injury or something that's causing you to run poorly on your 40, or you're not as strong, so you don't do as well on the bench press. Well, guess what? You can rehab that injury. You can get stronger physically with your muscles. You can't really change your cognitive ability. It is what it is at this point. And let's be real. All of us are going down the hill on that roller coaster. Maybe because you listen to this show. I don't know. I don't know what you got going on in your life, but you can't really do anything about your cognitive ability. So you could really, really tank a guy hard in the draft if you release that information.
Texter says the Panthers picked the wrong year to trade up. They should have gone for Derek Carr at this point. I don't dispute that. I really don't. I think the roster was pretty good. You know, you keep your first round picks. You sign Derek Carr. You're not mortgaging the future. You're better now, right? Everyone talks about how good Carolina's roster is. Derek Carr to DJ Moore would have been a much better combination than Bryce Young to Adam Thielen, right? Derek Carr to DJ Moore, that works for me. They didn't want to do it. Panther fans felt like Derek Carr was another stopgap, even though he's 30, 31 years old. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Good afternoon, gents. Just trying to find out if the Swamp Rabbits won yesterday. They did not. They lost 2-1 in overtime. That's the bad news. The good news is still 5 more potential games in a best-of-7 series tied 1-1. Texter says, Mark, may the love of Christ be with you, Angela, and your entire family. My condolences. So says Trey in Kentucky. Trey, thanks so very much. So I really appreciate that, Trey. Thanks, buddy. Want to share this with you guys. This is the counterpoint to CJ Stroud and his S2 cognitive test. Remember, in this cognitive testing, you want to score an 80 or better. Bryce Young was in the 98th percentile. Will Levis, 93%. Anthony Richardson was right on the borderline, 79%. Hendon Hooker was 46%, and C.J. Stroud was 18%. 18th percentile. An AFC executive said if you get a low score, it's 100%. None of those QBs that got a low score ever became a good player. But here is where C.J. Stroud does shine. And here is the conundrum if you are an NFL executive. Diesel, I went and looked over the weekend at the 4 biggest games that the 4 biggest prospects played. And I was like, okay, I don't need this research to prove my point. If the research changes my point, so be it, right? I just want to know how they fared in their biggest game, in their biggest games. Well, Bryce Young in his 4 biggest games, twice against Georgia. He had a game in there against Cincinnati, completed 59.5% of his passes, 333 yards average passing in those games, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. That's okay.
It's a good performance, but it's not great.
Okay.
It's also a good performance against an elite defense.
Right, but it's okay. 59.5%. They would say that's not great. 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, that's okay. Record in those 4 games, Diesel, 1-3. Okay, Tennessee was also on there. The Tennessee game last year, 1-3 was the record in those games. Anthony Richardson, 1-3 record in those games, in his 4 biggest games. Completion percentage in his 4 biggest games, 51.5% completions. 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, but in 4 games, 4 touchdowns and 2
It's
picks.
called not being that guy.
Right. 51.5% completions. In those games, he threw 275 yards. Will Levis, his 4 biggest games. Will Levis completed 62% for just 173 yards on average. In his 4 biggest games, Will Levis had 3 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions. Okay, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 173 yards passing a game, completed 62%. I know Kentucky's got kind of a conservative offense, but Diesel, and the record in those 4 games, 1-3. CJ Stroud, you ready? 4 games. 325 passing yards a game, 68% completions, 12 touchdowns, 2 picks. The record, 1-3. And so what you're seeing here is exactly why the scouts are saying this class doesn't have that guy, right? It's like, like this guy does this thing well. Bryce Young, really good anticipation, really good feel in the pocket.
They're
really
all projects.
Good accuracy, but he's small fry. You know what I mean? He's really small fry. CJ Stroud, man, perfected that Ohio State offense, but is kind of robotic. And how come he's not processing things more quickly? Will Levis, all of his bathroom selfies, one of the nation's leaders in turnovers, Diesel. And then, in his 4 biggest games, 3 touchdowns, 6 picks. And Anthony Richardson, as massive of a project as you could possibly have. And there was a guy in front of me, Chris Muller, on Saturday on CBS Radio. He hosted in Pittsburgh. He was before me, and I was listening to him driving in to the studio, and he said that, like, Carolina's about to make a mistake at the number 1 pick because they should take Anthony Richardson. And I like his show. Chris Muller does a great job on the air. And I went on, I went on after, and I said, Chris, love the show, man. I really do. Like, he does a really nice job. But I've got to say this, man. It's like you got to take somebody who completed 51% of his passes in the biggest games that he played, that, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks in the biggest games that he played. Like, you got to draft that. Diesel, if you're a GM, you're married to that top 5 quarterback. You're married to that.
Yeah.
And none of us marry possibilities. We marry what we are sure about. You don't marry, she could be good. You marry, she is fantastic.
I would have said to him, I love your show. I love what you do. But if you're going to drink while on the air, at least leave a couple of beers in the studio for the guy that comes on after you, namely me.
But he says, the Panthers are going to be making a mistake if they pass up Anthony Richardson. And I'm like, could he be good? I suppose he could be. But if you look at the 4 biggest games, 51% completions, 275 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. CJ Stroud, compared to the other guys, aced his biggest games. Diesel, when I was starting that research, I was expecting Bryce Young to slay it when I was doing that. Like, I just remember he had big numbers in a lot of these games, and I was like, 59% completions, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. Yeah, 333 yards a game in those 4 games, but the other numbers there, 7, okay. 59%, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. Okay. CJ Stroud, 68%, 12 touchdowns, 2 picks, 325 yards passing a game. That got my attention. So how do you juxtapose that, him performing it really well in the biggest games, with the 18th percentile on a cognitive test where nobody has been a good pro that doesn't fare well on it? How do you do that? Some are saying DJ Uiagalelei has some fighting words for Clemson. Why, I'll tell you, there's more smoke there than fire, and that's next. Here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's off. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Appreciate you guys making us part of your day today, man. Really, really do. So there are some Clemson fans up in arms over some comments DJ Uiagalelei made recently to The Athletic about his time at Clemson. And I want to ask you guys, I'm going to share the comments with you specifically, and I want to ask you what I feel about them. If you feel the same way, that like, where's the beef? Old school Wendy slogan, right? Like, what's the problem here? Is DJ saying something that isn't true? Is this sour grapes? Like, I know how this works. You know, like everybody praises everybody as long as they're on the same team, and as long as somebody leaves, it's don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. I got no problem with what DJ Uiagalelei says here to The Athletic. Speaking to Bruce Feldman, said the following: I wanted to go somewhere where the scheme is going to fit me. I wanted to go somewhere where they're going to let me be who I am as a player, let me play free, and let me go out there and just cut it loose. Just somewhere where I can do what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to do play action, throw a lot of deep balls, deep posts, scheme-wise a little bit more complex than I was doing at Clemson, a little more NFL style. I looked at Will Levis. A lot of people have him going first round because he's a good player, but also because he plays in a pro-style system. It's something different from Clemson, where every player, they recognize you, come up to you, ask you for a picture. So, like, how is Corvallis, Oregon different from being in Clemson? He says at Clemson, essentially, you're a celebrity. Here it is, nice. I just walk around, me and my girlfriend, I go eat. No one knows who I am. It's great. And that's the difference in level of passion, Diesel, East Coast and West Coast. He's in Corvallis, Oregon. It's like they like their team, but they don't live their team. It's a difference between liking and living your team, right?
There's also a lot of Pacific Islanders on the West Coast, especially down in Utah. So I would have to assume there's more Pacific Islanders in Oregon, and you sort of blend right in. And there's a lot of people who look. DJ had so much hype heaped upon him that he never lived up to at Clemson. And maybe he just needs that pressure taken off his shoulders to be at his best.
So if I ask you guys, like, was the problem at Clemson DJ? If you answer yes, I think you're wrong. I think he was part of the problem, but I think the problem was multifactorial. You had DJ in year one had Tony Elliott. DJ in year two had Brandon Streeter. Brandon Streeter never used the middle of the field, which was a problem. How many passes did you see from DJ right to the sideline? Wide receiver screen over and over and over again, or a deep ball. This was also interesting. To summarize that article, Uiagalelei felt Clemson's offensive scheme was way too basic, and the coaching staff didn't structure their scheme to him. He also added the Tigers were calling plays scared when he was under center. Okay. They were calling plays scared when I was under center. They didn't trust me. Folks, those are his feelings. Did you not watch Clemson play and believe that Clemson was calling plays scared? Did it not seem very vanilla, very basic to you? Could you see how a quarterback of DJ Uiagalelei's ilk would want to do something else, would want to do something more? And, you know, it's interesting. I was reading takes from different media personalities about this today, right? Kelly Gramlich is now a college basketball analyst on ESPN and the ACC network. And I've met Kelly a number of times. She is a super friendly person, and I wish her all of the best of well wishes. She's going to have a newborn coming very, very soon. She says, man, this DJ article is quite the read. It surprises me a little bit that a guy who Dabo basically never criticized publicly was willing to be this critical of Clemson and its coaches in such a public way. DJ didn't tell me anything I didn't already know about his experience there. You know, like he wanted to go somewhere where they were going to cut the shackles off him because he had the shackles on him at Clemson. Maybe he had the shackles on him at Clemson, Diesel, because they felt like if they let him loose, they'd lose, right? If they let him loose, he's going to throw a bunch of turnovers.
Well, it's a chicken or the egg situation. DJ's saying they didn't give me interesting plays because they didn't trust me. And Clemson's saying, well, every time we give you interesting plays, something bad happens. So yeah, we don't trust you. The two feed into each other. And like we talked a lot last year and the year before about how South Carolina fans needed to grow up. Clemson fans also need to grow up. There is this pearl clutching among Clemson fans that anytime you say anything, it doesn't even have to be scathingly negative, even remotely negative, or against the overall arching narrative. Dabo knows what he's doing. Dabo's got us in good hands. Dabo's got everything all right. It's going to be okay. Clemson fans lose their minds. And we saw it with the Graham Neff conversation. Well, I just don't believe that Graham would say something like that. Well, so you don't know.
He doesn't believe it, Diesel, because it upsets them.
Right. It upsets you. And this upsets Clemson fans. And, Kelly, I don't know if she's a Clemson alum, Clemson fan, covered them. That's fine. But she's still got a little bit of that. I can't believe DJ would say something like this. Grow up. Learn to accept the criticism. Understand that it's not just everybody trying to rip everybody. Maybe there's some legitimate criticism there, and that's part of the reason why DJ wasn't as successful as he could have been.
Right. No, I hear you. I mean, and so I don't ever have a problem with anybody expressing their feelings, like that is DJ's opinion. He didn't make it personal. Like he didn't really trash anybody. Like this is why I left. This is why I'm happy to be here. I can walk out and about with my girlfriend and I'm largely anonymous. I love that as opposed to being swarmed at Clemson. They're going to allow me to have an open style of play. They're going to take the training wheels off, the shackles off. I felt like they didn't do that at Clemson. So he said, I felt like they called plays scared. Well, maybe Brandon Streeter was calling plays scared. He ended up losing his job after all. Maybe he was calling plays to try to save his job, a job that he ended up losing. And then you have Dabo Swinney coming out and saying, look, we hired Garrett Riley because in my one meeting with him, he said I'd accept the job. Otherwise, we would have kept Brandon Streeter. He had one meeting with Garrett Riley, said Garrett Riley said he would accept the job, and then they chose to move on from Brandon Streeter. That is DJ's perception of what things were at Clemson. So long as he's not saying something about somebody's mama, so long as he's not dropping F-bombs and making it personal, which he didn't do, he is allowed to have his perception. Okay? And he was part of the problem. He was not part of the solution. But he wasn't the only part of the problem. Right? Dabo's lack of use of the transfer portal was part of the problem. Dabo's conservatism was part of the problem. Brandon Streeter not knowing how to use the middle of the field was part of the problem. Play calling in general was part of the problem. And then DJ just largely looking uncomfortable with everything that Clemson wanted to do was part of the problem. I can't figure out for the life of me why we never got the DJ that we saw his freshman year at Notre Dame when Clemson lost in overtime where he threw for over 400 yards. That guy looked like the next in the line of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. We never saw him again.
Well, they tried to fit DJ into a system that he's not right for, rather than adapting the system around his skill set.
All right, guys, I see you guys on the line. If you're on the line, we're going to ask you to please hold because we've got Chris Phillips joining us next to talk Gamecocks with us. A red letter weekend, or should I say a garnet letter weekend for the Gamecocks in Columbia. over my beloved Florida Gators. We'll tackle that next here on Offsides. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Some breaking news in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. More on that coming in the top 5 at 5. I was surprised at the haul the Jets actually got from Green Bay when all is said and done. But right now, we go to the Spurs Up Show. Chris Phillips, where, man, let me tell you, a garnet letter day for the Gamecocks over the weekend. Number 3 Florida comes to town. The Gamecocks bust out the brooms, man. Bust out the brooms. 25-10 in the 3-game series. That's an average game of 8-3. South Carolina wins all 3 over Florida. Chris, you're going to find this funny, man. So when I do the national shows with CBS, one of the affiliates is in Columbia, and I'm on the national show doing NFL draft talk, and we start getting calls from Columbia from people who wanted to give me hell about the Gators on the national radio network, And I'm like, there's no way these guys are going to have the balls to come on national radio with this. And they did. So, Chris, congratulations to the Gamecocks, man, for the series. I got a kick out of that, man. It's like, Chris, if you're hosting national radio, I don't know, like Gamecocks Gators doesn't make a national radio rundown, but they took over the show for a few minutes and they wanted to talk about it, and we did. Hell of a series for South Carolina. And in your mind, give us what you saw.
Well, Mark Diesel, first things first, appreciate you having me on. I was going to say, Mark, aren't you just glad that Gamecock fans are recognizing you as what you actually are and what you're not? And that is a Florida grad and a Florida man and not a Clemson fan that so many label you to be on social media. So I figured you'd be glad at that, at least, that they're acknowledging you for what you really are, which is orange and blue, not orange and purple. But listen, in the when you speak of the national landscape, I would say if you're going to talk college baseball from the national landscape, South Carolina, Florida was the series, right? Number 3 versus number 6. Founders Park was sold out for all 3 days, and I thought the Rowdy Roosters, the crowd there in Columbia, really made their presence felt. But Mark, South Carolina just dominated. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. And I know we love to talk about the sticks, right? Ethan Petrie, Cole Messina, Dylan Brewer, the list goes on and on. But you mentioned that Gamecocks pitching staff allowing just 10 runs over the weekend, a 2.88 series ERA. And, I thought what their pitchers did, especially in games 2 and 3, it was just big pitch after big pitch after big pitch. Florida had chances, right? Florida had opportunities, especially in those last 2 games, but the Gamecocks pitchers just rose to the occasion every single time. And, Mark, I think what's so special about it, too, is you look at who South Carolina was missing over the weekend, right? It's not like this team, hasn't faced adversity, has completely avoided the injury bug, right? I mean, you're without your starting third baseman. You're without your starting second baseman. Your starting first baseman gets hurt in game 1. And, oh, by the way, Noah Hall hasn't pitched. Your game 2 guy, game 2 starting pitcher, hasn't pitched in a couple of weeks. And this team is still able to overcome the adversity time and time again. It feels like a new hero steps up each and every single night. And, certainly, again, that was the case this weekend. And I tell you what, Mark, I think what this weekend almost showed more than anything, the Gamecocks, they're going to be hosting a regional, probably going to be a top 8 national seed, going to be hosting a super. They are going to be a really tough out at Founders Park because you could tell this team was playing with a different type of energy, a different type of moxie, a different type of swagger. And, Mark, Florida didn't know how to handle it. I'll give you a little stat here, Mark Ryan. Did you know that the Florida Gators, they have not won a baseball game in the city of Columbia since March 18th, 2018. I believe that's 1,873 days. I'm doing my math correctly. So it's been quite a rough going for Kevin O'Sullivan and the boys at Founders.
And how many days since Florida's beaten South Carolina in football, Chris?
Let me do the math.
Yesterday. 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 Yeah, that's right. So I got a lot of that. What's that place called that does the marquee, Chris? The Tin Roof or something?
Oh no, Cotton Gin.
Cotton Gin
in 5 Points.
Yeah, Cotton Gin. They had another pop off on the marquee, which is warranted and earned. And look, all props, all congratulations to the Gamecocks. There is one beef that Gamecock fans continue to have, though. You've heard it today. I've heard it today. On the text line right now, texter says, I think it's an absolute snub that South Carolina is not ranked first. Blows my mind. Chris, it's so much better heading into the postseason to be the hunter and not the hunted. Ask Tennessee about that last year. Okay? Yeah. It's so much better. Allow that snub to continue to be the chip on your shoulder because the Gamecocks very much do look like the best team in the country, but it's not the best thing, like Nick Saban talks about this all the time. They always get every team's best shot. You don't want to be the Alabama at this point. You want to be the Alabama when the season is done. I got no problem with the Gamecocks being third right now. And I thought it was interesting that despite the sweep, Florida only fell to fourth.
Well, typically in these polls, Mark, and call it what it is, there's a lot of preseason bias, and you're not going to get punished greatly for one bad weekend in college baseball in the polls. Now, you have back-to-back bad weekends, or obviously 3 in a row. That's when I think the punishment will come, right? But in baseball, every team has a bad weekend. So I think if you drop teams and you made teams rise because of one good or bad weekend, the polls would just be a mess, right? So, for example, and I know a lot of Gamecock fans do have a gripe with LSU still being number one. And I think the biggest snub mark of all is that we're not going to get game 3 of that series between South Carolina and LSU. It's just such a darn shame that we didn't get that game in because the series ended up tied at 1-1. With the preseason bias, LSU, unless they lose that number 1 spot, they're not coming out of it, which is okay. My hot take today, Mark, is that I don't want the Gamecocks to be the number 1 overall seed going into postseason because do you know this, Mark? The number 1 overall seed, they have not won it all since 1999. That was the Miami Hurricanes. So I have no problem, like you mentioned, no problem with LSU having to be the one to shoulder the pressure of, going wire to wire and being number 1 all season long. And the Gamecocks just get to play the underdog role. Get to play the underdog, go into the postseason, chip on the shoulder. We still got something to prove. That's a good position to be in. Like you mentioned, it's much easier to be the hunter than to be the hunted and shoulder that pressure. So I've got no issue with it. It's great. Listen, this is a great conversation to be having, right, Mark? I don't know if you saw this, but a year ago to the date, I was calling for Mark Kingston's job. So this is a much more fun conversation to be having a year later. The Gamecocks should be number 1, right? If you'd have told me that a year ago, I would have called you crazy. And it's a job well done, obviously, by Kingston, Monty Lee, Justin Parker, and that entire ball club. But I agree with you, man. Be the hunter, not the hunted. Let LSU have to shoulder the pressure. But if it comes to a point where they lose and the Gamecocks keep winning, I'd happily accept the Gamecocks being ranked number 1 because they've certainly, I think, done everything to this point to earn being considered the best team in all of college baseball.
You said 1993? Was it
1999?
1999. So not even this century. Not a single time this century has the number 1 seed at Omaha actually won the College Baseball World Series. So a different question for you here, Chris, and it's one that I'm wondering about. I'm going to compare college baseball and its fandom to NHL in this sense. When I lived in Tampa and worked in Tampa, the Tampa Bay Lightning were the ticket in town, Chris. Okay? The Buccaneers were bad football. The Rays played good baseball, but they had the worst stadium. The Lightning's arena, Amalie Arena, was right on the water. You had high-scale food options. The in-game entertainment made it feel like you were at an event, not a game, right? You had high-end beer options. Multiple arena employees would ask, how is your experience going? How can we make your experience better? And I said, man, the Rays and the Bucks need to take notes of this because this feels like an event, not a game. Now, what they developed over a period of time, despite having the area having no history with the sport of hockey, they developed 20 to 30,000 hardcore fans. But when you look at the television ratings, Chris, they still paled in comparison to the Rays and the Buccaneers in the state of Tampa. And I'm wondering if college baseball is a little bit the same because those who are fans, Chris, are hardcore fans, and believe you me, they let you know it. But Chris, I'm always floored when I see this. Like Chris Veach, that's your closer, right? Chris Veach?
Right.
He's your closer. I go to his Twitter, Chris. He's got 500 followers. What's that? like seriously, man. What is that? The best player on the team, Petrie, has 1,300 followers. So the whole team has one player with 1,300 followers. To give you guys a comparison, I've got 8,100 followers. So it's like the best player on the Gamecocks baseball team is largely a nobody to social media. So, like, Chris, right. is that a good comparison? It's a niche following. Those who are fans are hardcore fans, but there's just not enough of them. You look at the television ratings, Chris, the college baseball series gets a 1. The Final Four gets an 11. So, and then you know how many Twitter followers Spencer Rattler has. Why is it not that way for Petrie?
I mean, it is niche for sure, and I think college baseball still suffers from it's under televised, it's undercovered, it's just not put out there on a national scale. But you're right, Mark. I think it just kind of goes back to the game of baseball as a whole, right? MLB fights this as well. I don't know how else to say it other than like you're either a baseball person or you're not. You know what I mean? I just don't know. Like we always see them tinkering with the rule changes and trying to change things up and getting new fans in or what have you. But I just you either like it or you don't. I mean, there's really no way around it. So it is a niche thing, and it's something, funny, not to make it about myself, Mark, but I used to kind of, I'm such a baseball guy, right? Like I played at the college level. Like I love the game. I love the Yardcocks. I love college baseball and baseball as a whole. And it almost used to kind of maybe irk me too strong, but I used to be like, why does everybody want to talk football in April? Like, why aren't we talking more college baseball? Why aren't we talking baseball? And now I've really learned to embrace that because it's like, hey, it's just what moves the needle, right? And so why not lean into it and give the people what they want? But guys like Petrie, like Beach, whatever, they're still just not put out there. You know what I mean? On that platform, if you will. And, to answer your question, Mark, I don't really know other than saying it is a niche thing. And, Gamecock fans and SEC fans, right, are as passionate as any in the country, right, when it comes to they're packing out their stadiums, the passion each and every single SEC team has. I mean, Florida, for example, is one, Arkansas, LSU, even Tennessee now, but of course, South Carolina plays second fiddle to nobody, packing out 82-42 all three games, and that being the attendance figures, of course. But, it is a niche thing. It is a niche thing. Not everybody, I can look at it, Mark, I've got a really unique vantage point because with my business, I see interactions, engagements, downloads for the podcast, how many people are tuning in our live show. And, Mark, I'll tell you, from this time of year, even as good as the Yardcocks are from right now to football season, the numbers double. And there's just some people that are just football. And I think one of the reasons, Mark, and I'm not trying to insult anyone or say anything about anyone particular, but I think football, one of the reasons it's so popular, it's the easiest sport to talk about and sound like you know what you're talking about. You can stand around the water cooler and talk about that quarterback's a doofus or he's the greatest ever. He should have done this, that. If you're talking baseball and you don't know what you're talking about, Mark, it is so painfully obvious because it's such a skill game. It's such a game. If you don't follow the nuances and everything going on, you just cannot carry conversation when it comes to the game. Like I said, I'm not trying to come at anybody, but I just think that's the reality. So the conversation, I think, is much deeper than just a surface level thing. I think there's many layers to it. But certainly, while it may have lesser in numbers, the passion that Gamecocks baseball fans and SEC baseball fans have, I think truly it's second to none.
Well, Chris, I think a testament to just how into baseball South Carolina fans are. Our YouTube live stream right now, the comment section is usually going crazy with South Carolina fans just chattering the whole show. They've all gone quiet and they are listening intently to this interview. But for the Gamecock fans here in the Upstate who've never made the trip down to Founders Park, talk to me about what makes Founders Park the experience unique, even compared to being a Gamecock fan going to football games or going to basketball games. What is very, very unique about the experience fans have in Founders Park?
Well, first thing, the difference, Diesel, between football and baseball, I think, is it's a more intimate setting because it's a smaller venue, right? So all the chirping, all of the heckling, like players can hear it, right? Like you can very easily get under the opponent's skin because they can hear pretty much everything you're saying. When you talk about what makes a game at Founders so special, I mean, first thing I think of is the people, and Mark Ryan and you as well, Diesel, you guys have fell victim to this. And I think Shane Beamer reflects this. I think that's one of the reasons fans love him so much. But when I think of a Gamecock fan, it's somebody that has this chip on their shoulder. And Gamecock fans have an edge.
I've never experienced that, Chris. No.
Gamecock fans have this edge. Like, we're doubted. Nobody believes in us. Everybody hates us. And so there's this extra juice. Like, it's the opposite of the wine and cheese crowd, right? So when the Rowdy Roosters bring it, there aren't any better hecklers in all of college baseball, in my opinion. But the venue itself, man, I tell you, if you've never been to a ball game, I mean, whether it be a weekend matchup for an SEC series or it be a midweek game, just go check out the building itself. I mean, Founders Park is one of the best venues in all of college baseball, all in baseball, period, really, to catch a game. I mean, it's a beautiful facility. Field, the Stars, I used to love that place, and I heard they were building a new stadium in 2009. I'm like, why are they doing that? The Stars is so great. Then you went to Founders Park, man, and it just blows you away. I mean, it's just a great place to catch a ball game. And again, guys, like I said, when the Yardcocks are rolling and good, I mean, the Rowdy Roosters really bring it. It's one of the most intense environments in all of college baseball. So, you know, I think the people and the fans really make it what it is. And again, you just got a group of people that, number one, love the University of South Carolina, love the University of South Carolina athletics, and love baseball as well. And they're knowledgeable about baseball, and you've got great tradition and history in baseball. And so those fans know what great baseball looks like. And, you know, if it's not acceptable, as we saw last year, right, we'll let you hear it. But, no, it's a great experience, man. And I would just tell anybody, if you've never been, even if you can only catch a midweek game, because I know right now it's hard to get a ticket, just get down there and see it for yourself, man. Because it's one of the great spectacles the sport has to offer.
All right, we'll leave you with this, Chris. You said the Gamecock fan base is the opposite of the wine and cheese crowd. So give me that in terms of food. If you're not wine and cheese, what food items are Gamecock fans?
God, you're like a spicy margarita and the hottest barbecue you've ever eaten in your life, man. I don't know. Like, I don't know. You get, you can smell it before you even get to it. As you consume it, you get a kick out of it. It's going to hurt you down the road too, man, if you know what I mean. So it just keeps jabbing you and hitting you from all different angles, man. That's how I describe the Gamecock fan base to a degree. And again, you felt it. Hell, I felt it. I'm a Gamecock content creator. So, I mean, it's the beauty of it, man. I mean, I tell you, I know that sometimes you and I, Mark, we talk off air, Diesel as well, and I talk with others, and you know, we gripe sometimes about some of the people on social media, what have you. But I tell you, I wouldn't change anything, because it's that passion and that energy that Gamecock fans have. It's why I'm able to do what I do for a living. It's why, honestly, Mark, one of the reasons you guys are able to do what you do and your show be so successful, and why your comments move the needle so much. Because this group of people, they have such an undying passion and loyalty for the University of South Carolina. Everything that you say matters, right? Everything that I say matters. Everything that's said about the Gamecocks matters. And I think that's a great place to be in, man. So it's a lot of fun right now, and it's only going to get better as we get closer to the postseason.
We'll see you Wednesday, pal. Thank you, bud.
Mark, pleasure. Diesel, you take care. I appreciate y'all.
All right, Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. The top 5 at 5 is next here on Offsides. I was going to say, Diesel, if they're not wine and cheese, they're dip and what else?
Hey,
he went a much nicer route than that.
To the streamers, here's what we're going to do. Those of you who are still watching right now, Chris Mongo says burgers and beer. What we're going to do now, I think, is we are going to stay on the stream through the top 5 at 5, because the top 5 at 5 kind of recaps the show. It also kind of launches us into phase 2 of the show, some of the topics that are coming up maybe later on in the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to stay on the stream most days now through the top 5 at 5. So I know a lot of you are used to seeing 5 o'clock, click off the stream, we're done. No, stay with us for one more segment, and we're going to be back with the top 5 at 5 after this. Mark, with my team being in the basement of college baseball for years and years and years, this morning we beat a really good baseball team over the weekend, a series win against Old Dominion, who was a top 100 team going into the weekend. I decided to look up and just see how much good baseball on the collegiate level is being played right here in the area. And so I looked at contiguous states to North Carolina. Get this.
Well, explain to us what contiguous means, because
We have a smart enough audience.
Some of us scored lower than 18% on the ST
states that touch North Carolina.
Oh, there you go.
Of the states that touch North Carolina, including North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, just a little bit, and South Carolina. 16 out of the top 50 teams in the country in RPI are in contiguous states to North Carolina. 16 out of 50, 23 out of the top 100. That means just shy of 25% of the top 100 teams in college baseball are right here in a very tight geographic area. So you've got Wake Forest, you've got Virginia Tech, Duke, North Carolina, South Carolina in the top 100. But it's the small programs that are getting it done. And this is what's crazy to me, Mark. These are teams that are in the top 100 that are not in a major conference in contiguous states to North Carolina. You've got I'm trying to find it here. You got Wofford, Charlotte, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, Campbell, East Carolina, William and Mary, and Mercer. Doing it as small programs in this Southeast region. And, there's something to be said. There's not a whole lot of teams from up north who are in the top 100 because they have to all come down here and start their seasons on the road for weeks at a time. It's a tough way to get your season started. But, man, how good is college baseball in the Southeast right now?
Well, I will tell you, Diesel, you have left one out. North Carolina is contiguous to the Atlantic Ocean, and the Fishes are very offended that you did not include their teams in this study.
Well, the Atlantic Ocean's also not a state.
That's also true. Let's get to John Kruger, who's been hanging patiently on the line. Hey, John, good to hear from you, buddy. You're Offsides.
Good. But I'm sure, Mark, you've heard the news.
Yeah, about what, sir?
Aaron Rodgers, sorry.
Oh, yeah. We're just about to get to it in the top 5 at 5. Aaron Rodgers is a Jet.
Let me say this. We knew he was getting traded. I think, look, let's just all be clear. We all knew he was getting traded to the Jets. But I did not expect to get home from work today and see this news. We knew it was happening, just I didn't think it was going to be today.
No, like
I thought it was going to be like
it was gonna happen sometime surrounding the draft. I think the Packers got tired of waiting. They're making, in my opinion, the right move to move on. And I think the Jets are kind of doing a little bit of a deal with the devil. You're gonna acquire Aaron Rodgers, and what if you're still the third place team in that division? New England isn't a terrible team. I think the Jets are better than New England, but Miami's pretty good and Buffalo's great. I think they might still be the third place team in that division, man.
Yeah, you're the third place team. Like, I still think I know it's not saying much. It's that Zach Wilson's not very good, and never thought he should have gotten drafted by the Jets. But I kind of like what I see from Zach in college. But anyway, if I could, I just want to get your thoughts on this, Mark. If this is how I rank the quarterbacks in his division, okay? Josh Allen. Then what would you do? Would you do Tua before Aaron Rodgers, or would you do Aaron before Tua?
No, I would do Tua before Aaron, because Aaron was 16th in quarterback rating and 21st in QBR last year. Tua was top 5 in both. So I would do Tua second, Aaron third, and Mac Jones fourth. And, a lot of divisions, the hierarchy goes. The best quarterback to the worst quarterback. But, John, we got to keep it moving. But any other quick points?
No, it was a fun weekend being a Gamecock fan. And
congrats, buddy. Congrats. You earned it, man. You earned it. Listen, I took it on the chin. I received my lashings. All right. I do not appreciate the marks that you guys left on me from the weekend that was. Cotton Gin has got it. The Cotton Gin tagged me again, Diesel. They didn't put me on the marquee, but they tagged me in their post. Their troll job, which was an A+ troll job, said the following. They said, sweep, #sweep at Mark Ryan on air. And their marquee said, bring your brooms because Florida is a mess. That's what their marquee says in Columbia, South Carolina. Diesel, I listen. Like
That's
that
from
kind
the Candidate. Is that the name of the movie with Will Ferrell and
is that a movie?
Zach
then?
Galifianakis?
Really?
Yeah, because that's a mess. That's the character. He's kind of see, Will Ferrell plays sort of the OG North Carolina entrenched politician, and the other guy, Zach Galifianakis, plays Marty Huggins, kind of a soft-spoken, maybe a little, fruity local, effeminate local, who has 2 pugs for dogs. And he said that's his campaign slogan is "This state's a mess." So maybe they're stealing from that movie.
I'll say this, guys. This is the kind of smack talk that I love because, Diesel, this is good natured. You know what I mean? Like, this is fun. The Cotton Gin hashtag sweep at Mark Ryan on air. They're like tagging me in it. I mean, that's.
Dude, we should get a live show going at the Cotton Gin. I think they would love that.
Man, let's make it happen. And let's make this happen. It's the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5, Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. The worst kept secret in sports. We knew it was only a matter of when. So, what are the parting gifts in this deal? The Jets receive, now when I start going through this, your eyebrows are going to perk up, but not for long. They essentially did a pick swap in the first round. The Jets get Aaron Rodgers, pick number 15, and a 6th round pick. Okay? The Packers receive pick number 13. So the Jets move down 2 spots in the first round. They get a 2nd round pick, and they get a 7th round pick. Okay, so you improve by 2 spots in the first round. You get a 2nd round pick, and then the Jets get a 6th. The Packers get a 7th round pick. They also get a 2024 2nd round pick. That becomes and this is what we were talking about, Diesel. What was holding up the trade? That Aaron Rodgers wouldn't commit to playing beyond 1 year. If he would commit, they would know what to do. So here you go. They get a 2024 2nd round pick that becomes a 1st round pick if Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of the plays in 2024. So essentially, the Jets get Aaron Rodgers for 2 2nd round picks or a 1st and a 2nd round pick if Aaron Rodgers is playing next year. Is it too much to give up for Aaron Rodgers? I think so. Why? Because I don't think the Jets are 1 player away from winning the Super Bowl. I think they're 1 player away from being competitive. Aaron Rodgers makes them competitive. But is it a 1-year rental, or will there be more heard from Aaron Rodgers on that? Next up.
4.
At number 4 today, Clemson fans up in arms about some of DJ Uiagalelei's comments. Sat down with Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. DJ said, I wanted to go somewhere where the scheme is going to fit me. I wanted to go somewhere where they're going to let me be who I am as a player. Let me play free. Let me go out there and just cut it loose. Just somewhere where I can do what I want to do. Want to be able to do some play action, throw a lot of deep balls, deep posts, scheme-wise a little bit more complex than I was doing at Clemson, a little more NFL style. I looked at Will Levis, he said. A lot of people have Will Levis going 1st round because he's a good player, but also because he played in a pro-style system. Then he said, look, I got the sense that Clemson's scheme was too basic, and the coaching staff didn't structure their scheme to me. Added that the Tigers were calling plays scared when he was under center. And I say, folks, so what? That's his perception. That's how he feels. This isn't poor sportsmanship. This isn't offsides, right? Like, you're allowed to express how you feel. He didn't make it personal. Didn't say anything about anybody's mama. That's his perception on what went down.
Hey, maybe that should be the mantra of this country going forward. You're allowed to express how you feel. Because there's a lot of people out there who say you shouldn't be allowed to say certain things. But the people on our Facebook page, Mark, are really going into DJ pretty hard. We got Marino saying DJ couldn't make a 5-yard pass. Best of luck, dude. Let's see here. It says, Steven, yeah, they were scared. Of course they were, because he stinks as a quarterback. Let's see. Jason, of course they were scared. He couldn't throw an accurate pass even 10 yards down the field with 3 clown emojis. It's amazing how fast people turn on you when you're not wearing their color shirt anymore.
There is always that thing. There is that traitor mentality that you left us, man.
You're now talking trash about us from across the country. Now it's time to get out the sharp, pointy objects.
Even Kelly Gramlich, who's now with the ACC network, very, very nice person. She's about to be the mother of a new baby, and we wish her all the luck in that delivery process. She says it's surprising to see DJ go this route when Dabo basically never criticized him. Why? Why is it surprising? He's expressing how he feels. A texter says, I don't think any Clemson fan is upset by the DJ article. Well, they are.
You should read our Facebook page. That would suggest otherwise, texter.
Chicken and egg situation for sure. They gave you vanilla because he couldn't hit a 7-yard hitch route. When you can't hit the short, middle, or long pass, it's hard to expect deep posts.
It's also easy to be hopeful about what you're going to be able to do in a new system. Obviously, we can't know that until the season starts and he gets out there and plays. Maybe it was the system, or maybe we're going to learn it really was DJ.
Next up,
3,
non-sports, but we'll tie it into that anyway. Don Lemon is out at CNN, and Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News.
Ooh.
Tucker Carlson was 1A or 1B, their highest-rated show at Fox News. Why are we talking about that in our top 5 at 5? Well, Diesel, we are the controversial show of the upstate. And I am wondering, and I established a long time ago that, if media was moving away from my style, then I would just get out of media. Okay? Like, I'm not going to – if you're in a stressful spot in life, you can change the situation. You can change yourself to fit the situation, or you can leave the situation, okay? If this is the situation, I would leave the situation, Diesel, before I change myself to fit the situation. But interestingly, everybody knows we are the controversial show in the upstate, and Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson, most controversial voices on those two respective networks are now out of jobs. So what do you guys think? Does Offsides need to be worried? Is media going largely the politically correct route?
Well,
but I'll tell you what, channeling my inner Leo DiCaprio from Wolf of Wall Street, I ain't believing.
Hey, you gotta be able to pay that $787 million lawsuit settlement somehow, and cutting Tucker's $6 million a year. It sure is a great way to get started.
Next up,
2,
at number 2 today, NBA playoffs, man. What intriguing series we're getting. Miami up on Milwaukee because Giannis is not playing. Golden State gets a brick 3 at the buzzer by Harrison Barnes to tie the series with Sacramento at 2. I was watching that game yesterday, pulling for Steph Curry, local kid, Davidson College. Davidson College of Davidson?
It's Davidson College.
Davidson College. Love me some Steph Curry, was pulling for Golden State. But I'll tell you guys, I think Denver is the team that's getting the least amount of respect that I don't understand. Like, it does, their level of disrespect makes no sense to me. I'm looking at the Western Conference. Memphis is too conflicted. The stats say they're better when Ja Morant doesn't play. They're 81-47 with Ja Morant. They're 33-17 without him. Defensively, they're better. Their net ranking is better when he doesn't play. They're conflicted. Sacramento is too young. The Clippers are too banged up. Phoenix is too thin. Like, literally, Kevin Durant is too thin, and they have no bench. Golden State is too old. The Lakers are too brittle. And Minnesota's too broken. Gave up 4 first-round picks to Rudy Gobert. They're down 3-1, staved off elimination last night in their series with the Nuggets. Denver has been the number 1 seed in the Western Conference since December 20th. Okay? And everyone's acting like they don't have a chance to come out of this thing. Now, my numbers will tell you that there is about 4 teams in the East that have a better chance of winning the championship than does anyone from the West. Why? Because if you look at the NBA champions the last 10 years, not a single champion has been in the bottom half of the league in either offensive or defensive efficiency. The average ranking for your champions are number 5 on offense and number 5 on defense, defensive efficiency. 8 out of the last 10 NBA champions were top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Denver is second in offensive efficiency, but 18th out of 30 teams in defensive efficiency. You look at the East, man. Milwaukee, Boston in the East, right? You look at how these series are playing out. Cleveland, the Knicks, and the shutdown defense that they are posting. The 76ers. 76ers, Boston, and Milwaukee, according to my numbers, have a better chance of winning the NBA championship than anybody out of the Western Conference. And finally,
1.
folks, every quarterback in this year's draft has major flaws. The red flag on Bryce Young is his height. You look at the quarterbacks who have won Super Bowl since 2012. Only one was sub 6 feet. Only one. Okay? How about that? Patrick Mahomes, 6'2", Matthew Stafford, 6'3", Brady, 6'4", Patrick Mahomes, 6'2", Brady, 6'4", Nick Foles, 6'6", Peyton Manning, 6'5", Brady, 6'4", Joe Flacco, 6'6", and Russell Wilson, 5'11". He had the Legion of Boom defense playing with him. Bryce Young, the fatal flaw is his height, right? He's got an average arm in terms of arm strength, and he's 5'10". But the red flag for C.J. Stroud is a doozy. On the S2 cognitive test that rates your processing speed, he scored in the 18th percentile out of 100. Bryce Young was the 98th percentile. An AFC executive said, if you get a low score, it's 100%. None of the QBs that get a low score become good players. So do you take C.J. Stroud off your draft board completely because of that? Which red flag bothers you more? Bryce Young's height, C.J. Stroud's processing speed? Let us know. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. And we will continue our media mock draft with the New York Giants on the clock. Our buddy Carlos with a K, Ortiz, joins us next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate.
All right, stream. That's going to do it for us here.
Great seeing you today.
We had so many people in the stream today. It was great. Kevin, crap stirring as always. Trey Davis, Mongo, Kevin. I think I already said your name.
Blow you a kiss, buddy.
He's making fun of your shirt, man, on the way out. Yeah, we appreciate every single one of you for being here. Keep telling your friends, keep sharing this content out, help this channel keep growing. We were at 70 going into the weekend. Now we're at 105. That's crazy to have 35 new subscribers over the weekend. So tell your friends, grab your wife's phone, log into her YouTube or her Google account and subscribe for her. So that way she sees our content. Even she'll be like, who are these guys? Why am I getting their content? Because we're good. That's what it is. So appreciate you watching. We'll be back tomorrow on the stream, I think. And we'll see you right here on the Fan Upstate. Thank you so much.